out here.
Hi, my name is Carlos. I travel, I tattoo, and I take it all in. One country at a time, one tattoo at a time. Travel is what inspires me. Tattooing is what guides me. This is how I interpret the world. This is the global canvas.
What's up, everybody? Woo 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 woo! Today we are going to do something fun. We are going to do a tattoo teardown, where we go through and we look at a tattoo. Maybe it's mine, maybe it's somebody else's. Today it's mine, and we completely destroy it. So, let's see what we got today. So, today I want to do this tattoo I did a while back of this pack of Skittles. And one of my favorite people in the world. I don't know the ethics yet about sharing people's names on here, so I'm just gonna call this person K. But let me play you what this looks like. This is the video you'd see on my Instagram of the tattoo, a nice after photo. This is in optimal lighting. This is with optimal camera settings. Basically, this is the best it's gonna look is day of, right there on camera. Every tattoo drops like 20% in vibrancy when it heals, but I've seen this thing in person several times and it still looks great. So let's go ahead and jump in here and let's take a look at this tattoo. So, I did not do these birthday candles over here. I just did the Skittles tattoo. Before we go into the process on this, I just want to say that this is not a beginner's piece in the sense, this isn't me being self-congratulating or anything like that. This is not a beginner's piece in the sense of like, oh, as long as you follow the steps I'm about to say, you could do this type of tattoo too. It's ridiculous. I'm going to forget a million things that I did while trying to share this and trying to break this down, so this is no kind of tutorial. And if you're learning how to tattoo, you should probably do it somewhere besides YouTube. Okay, so coming in here, this was probably about 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. This is actually part of a leg sleeve that is almost entirely comprised of different candies and sweet treats, and they're all actual size. So if you need an idea of how big this Skittles bag is, I would say rummage through your Halloween candy, through your pillowcase, and you'll find the exact size. Let's check out the stencil really quick. So here's the stencil, right? This is, can I zoom in on here? No, I'll just leave it like that. So this is the stencil I used. Oh, I gotta be able to zoom in, right? There we go. Yeah, boy. All right. So here's the stencil I use. For realism stuff like this, I use a app to make my stencils. I don't hand trace them anymore. There's just too many bits of information that I need to get in there and remember. And then if I do decide to hand trace, I'll probably have like the tiniest wobble where there should be a crease. So like over here, I hope you guys can see my mouse just as well as I can. Over here you see like the word grape. If that little G looked less like a 6 and more like a loop, it wouldn't feel right in the final version. Now take that concept and extrapolate it much bigger. I'm not that precise. But so I use an app, the Tattoo Stencil app from Pony Lawson. I'll put him in the comment or in the description below, so you can check out his stuff. Absolutely incredible tattooer. Does a lot of not micro realism, but a lot of realism on a smaller scale to an insane degree. He's a really, really good, solid tattooer. So I'm assuming he still uses his own app. I know I use it daily, but this is my stencil, right? So now if we take that and we go back to the tattoo, I'll go back and forth for a second here and you'll be able to see like, you know, the amount of edges and that black section of triangles over here is the exact same as over here, yada, yada, yada. If you look closer though, you'll see that this is just solid black and there's no stencil information in there except for solid black. Same with the triangles on this edge over here. But then if you come in, you can tell that there's varying hues of color here, varying values, varying chroma. So there's definitely some things that still in the process of doing the tattoo aren't relied on the stencil for. But we have our stencil and we see our tattoo, but how about our reference? That's a pretty important bit. So here's the reference I used. Again, this was from an actual pack of Skittles, excuse me, that I photographed. Whenever this client comes in, Kay brings a mystery bag full of candies and things that she wants to get tattooed, and we get to pick on the fly what would go where best, what would fit best with the overall theme of the sleeve and the layout of how everything is ultimately going to look. And this particular day, I think this was in November of last year actually, she brought some Skittles and a couple other smaller things. I was like, we have to do this Skittles bag, we just absolutely have to. So what I did is I laid this down on a white piece of paper towel, and then got my lighting, the same light that I would use for my tattoo setup for my working conditions, and I got that lit with just the right angle to have enough shimmer on the wrapper so you could see like the lifting and the bouncing and the crinkly shapes and the specular reflections and highlights on there. Got it just right, photographed it, and then cropped out that white paper towel background so I could have a nice white background. Then threw it over into TS stencil app, and then boom, we got our tattoo. So looking at this, if you go back and forth between the reference image here and the final tattoo, you can tell that there's a fair bit of difference between the photographed intention and the final execution. I can't say 100% that these differences were all made up by myself on the fly to better suit a tattoo, but many of them were. So there might be more contrast in a section than in others. So if you look at these little crinkles down here below the S, a lot of those reds are very similar to each other, where if you come down here you can see we have like a undead red into maybe a dark red over here, and then I got a lipstick red that's mixed with some probably blush, nude blush, or maybe pink over here. It looks a little more neutralized, so I don't think it was actually pink, but something in that family. I use all Eternal inks for anybody that's interested. Eternal doesn't sponsor me, though I wish they would, because I've been tagging them in everything I've done for like 15 years. But I know some people at Eternal, and they've always been nice with me. But please, give me free stuff. Okay. So going back to the tattoo here, there's things I adore about this tattoo. There's some stuff that I don't like, even though it's realism, and even though, I mean, there's like some details in here. Let me see if I could zoom in on this one that are just bananas. Pull this over here. This tiny little fold here where the wrapper just barely crinkled over. Come on, ridiculous. Oh, that's a Choco Taco, which I also did on this client. All right, let me bring that back to there. But yeah, there's some details in here that I'm absolutely super proud of how they turned out. Let's see something that maybe didn't turn out that well. So let's go back to our reference here. See if I can zoom in on that. Now, in skin, you cannot recreate every single precision detail that you see. It just can't happen because the skin cells are spaced and the needle groups are open. And even if you're doing single line, it's kind of impossible to fully saturate next to with single line without having a really choppy looking tattoo when it's done, sometimes like muddied out even. But if you look at like where it says bite-sized candies, natural and artificial flavors, and then you go back to the tattoo, that's just implied. It's suggested rather than described. I wish with everything in me I could have gotten that detail in there, but I just couldn't do it given the size of this being an actual size bag. The smallest needle grouping that I use is a tight 3 round liner. That's the best I could snag with those, but these guys, holy smokes, this turned out pretty sharp. I could see that the dots inside the R, the A, the P, the O in the word lemon. I will undoubtedly see this client again. I see them regularly, So I can check back in and verify what held up over the course of the last year and what blurred out. But the really important stuff is always going to be there. The believability of the image is always going to be there. The saturated ink is all going to age and lift appropriately together. That's going to be there. The word Skittles is huge, and I would say the colloquial recognizing of the brand is there. I don't think anybody's going to confuse this with like a condom wrapper or something like that. It's pretty obvious we're looking at Skittles. So yeah, so that is this piece, and let's go through and answer some, I guess, technical questions. So people always want to know how long, how much, how painful, and I can answer those three really quick. I kind of want to talk about the tattooing approach first, so I'll get back to those answers in just a moment, ADHD, but it looks like I did an outline around the word original here with my type 3 liner, and then filled in later with my yellows, but then butted up right against it really tight. So what I probably did, because again, this is a year ago, I'm going to try to remember as best I can here, is I probably took like a 3-round shader after I did the line and brought it right up and touched the edge of everything around the word original, and then used that same 3-round shader to blend anything near it outwards so that I could maintain the same saturation in that tiny spot as I could with like a mag elsewhere. Normally if you use a liner next to mags, you can tell the difference of saturation. You can tell when one was used versus the other, so it's kind of tricky to blend one into the other. So I likely did that. I like this big section here of red, just the big flat piece of cellophane, or the plastic wrapper. It looks like it's mostly one hue, maybe one little other one here, and that was probably like a big round liner, honestly, like a 5-round liner maybe. Okay, so this is a little patchy, but is that in my reference or no? No, this is pretty darn smooth on here, and then it's a little patchier in here. I think it gives it some believability, but I can't pretend like that was on purpose. That looks like just me not blending. Probably doing the same thing that I was avoiding up here, honestly. I probably lined out the outside of these letters with one needle group and then tried to cheese it in with a mag to finish it off, and it gave kind of like this like bumpy, less than saturated look. But still, all in all, I'm super proud of this tattoo. So the three big ones that people always want to know is how long did it take, how painful, and how much did it cost. Let me take number 2 first, how painful. This client, Kay, walks in the door already over it. She comes in and I'm like, hey, how you doing today? She's like, I could be better. I have to get fucking tattooed. Like, she's really not into it. Even though we've tattooed her like 14 times, 15 times, something like that. Always just shows up expecting the worst and prepared for the most painful. And to be frank, maybe it is. I don't know. Everybody's different. That it might actually be that rough for her. But we're able to knock out pretty much every session we've ever done on her in like 3 hours or less. So that brings me back to question number 1, is how long. This tattoo likely took me about 3 hours to do. I would have booked this as a 4 p.m. appointment, and I tattoo, unless extenuating circumstances, I tattoo until 8 p.m. at night, and there's always about 40 minutes of setup before needles actually in the skin. So my guess is this is probably about 3.5 hours. As far as the how much, obviously all tattooers vary, and there's no such thing as like standard price for tattoos, but I charge $200 per hour, so this tattoo likely cost about $600 to $750, somewhere in that window. I want to see if there's anything I can teach, or not teach, but I can share off of the stencil to the final tattoo. Okay, I see. check out this. They got their little, before it was X, their little Twitter handle down here at Skittles. They're skittles.com. I see it in my reference right here. However, it's not in the tattoo. Why is that? Did I forget or miss? Probably not. Maybe. I wouldn't put it past me. I'm not the smartest man in the world. But it looks like these letters are more readable and captures the eye when you're bouncing around looking at the tattoo. Part of the effect of a hyper-realism painter or like a realism or hyper-realism tattooer. I don't know about hyper and tattooing. I kind of don't believe that aspect. But a realism tattooer is making people go, wow, gosh, it looks so real. Holy smokes. If I put that little Twitter handle down here, it might be a little too busy, and we want the eye to be able to bounce around and look at different things to land on, to keep the adventure of looking at it interesting, so to speak. So it looks like I knocked those out in the process of tattooing, just to ensure readability and as much power punch as possible. I did this Choco Taco as well, probably a year before that Skittles tattoo. I don't have the stencil or the reference handy, but it also looks delicious. I think we honestly did this the day that they announced that the Choco Taco was going to be discontinued, and that, as you can see in the skin, is fully healed compared to this one. So this could have been a year before this one. Could have been a few months. I don't recall exactly, but I almost feel like this was maybe a year before, maybe October, the year before this one, which was in November, or October, September. I got those dates messed up. But yeah, pretty rad. So yeah, I like this tattoo quite a bit. Obviously, I'm curating this stream so I can pick whatever tattoo I want, and I picked one that I like, that I feel like I did good at. I will definitely pick a tattoo for another teardown that I don't think is good, that's at least 15 years old, and on somebody I don't like, just in case they find the video and they're not happy about what I have to say about my own work 15 years ago. Yeah, I wish we had... You know what we should do? I would like to do user submitted or fan submitted or viewer submitted, that's the word I'm looking for, viewer submitted teardowns, because I think it would be easier for me to shit on a tattoo if I have no connection to it and if it's objectively bad. If it's a really good piece and if it's from an artist I know as a colleague or just in the industry and it requires some critique, I have no qualms in doing that. I'm perfectly fine with that. In most cases, I can just reach out to people and be like, hey, yo, this is about to happen, so, you know, bear with it. I'm not going to be mean about anything, but I definitely, I don't hold back. Pretty big color palette for this. Believe it or not, it looks just like it's a red wrapper, but if you look close, I'll zoom in again. If you look close, we have a lot of little hue variations going on. So you have reds here, obviously red, yellow, blue, but each of these little Skittles here has a couple of colors in them. So this looks like a green one. It has a little bit of, it's green by Harmony, but that's almost like a olive or a sage, not even sage, it's even more neutralized than that, almost like an olive green. But I see two colors minimum, 1, 2. Same with this yellow. I see that there's more color here, a little bit more orangey into the yellow here. In your little taste of the rainbow lines here, I see it like varies from there to there to there. That's a third color too. So yeah, like the color palette for this was probably like 30 caps, even though it's just a red bag. But just to save time and make sure I have all those, and I don't have to mix them all on the fly. The color mixing portion, it's a lot like painting. To fine tune a color, you're going to use your same painting skills, but if you can have it in the cap, it shortens that distance between thought and translating the reference into skin. And especially for somebody like Kay that does not like to get tattooed, that's kind of crucial to minimize that time if you can. Not important to rush ever, but if you can do anything to minimize the pain, the price, the overall investments, I think it's paramount to minimize those things if you can, and if it's not going to damage the tattoo process. This little turn into shadow here, the triangle of probably undead red with a little bit of black or maybe some plum even. I'm really into those two shadows right there. A lot of times, a mistake that I'll see in a tattoo, if something's moving into a shadow, people will start to mix their local pigment with some black to darken it. But the problem I have with that is that black will neutralize anything you're mixing with, and things normally get warmer as they turn into shadow. I know some painters that might disagree. They might say it's very situational, but I found in every situation, as something moves to its shadow side, it gets warmer rather than cooler or more neutralized. So it would be better to mix these reds in with something like an undead red, which is like a medium hue, medium value red, into plum, more purpley color, into a hard black on the very, very edge. But I don't see any real true black in here. Maybe in this little corner here, but not much. It's a good exercise when you're trying to do something complementary on the color wheel. If you're trying to boost the contrast in something, you take whatever your color is and then you put the opposite color next to it, because that will give you contrast. But if you want to build like a shadow for something, a useful trick is to go across the color wheel and then slightly warmer, and that'll give you that turning into warmth effect that you're looking at. This plum and this red are not on opposite sides of the color wheel, but the trick worked anyways. It got deeper to get a little bit more purpley warmer. Took an art class many years ago. It was a crappy little continuing education art class, but I took an art class a while ago where the teacher said, when in doubt, just add violet. It'll always solve the problem that you're looking for. Violet is both warm and cool somehow at the same time. It neutralizes things, it tints other colors and pulls them in a direction that you might not have been thinking before, and it kind of clicks your brain and kicks it up into a different gear that maybe it wasn't thinking, and it typically solves your problem. So if you ever are in doubt, just use violet. I'm wondering in this reference, or in this tattoo for that matter, if these darks and then these whites are something in here. Oh, they most certainly are. Okay, it's just in the skin, it's not as saturated and crispy. So if I could pull those tighter edges, then I could have worked those whites all the way up to the edge, and then worked these grays all the way out into whatever the neutral gray tone was. But any circumstances might have led it to just be this way, which is a little more splotchy. I am an oil painter by trade, you know? Well, before tattooing, I guess I'm not really an oil painter. I mean, I'm doing it again for the first time in years, but I painted professionally only for a very brief time during between quitting my job and graduating my tattoo apprenticeship. But ever since then, I've just been a tattooer that has the ability to paint. But the only reason I bring that up is to say that I do see in all of my realism a sense of painter's hand, and there's a little bit more of like oil paintery brush strokes in what I do. And it has that kind of feel where you can see each individual stroke, if you will. Even in something that's like this realistic, you can still see some of the movement of the machine. Man, this is tripping me up. Right, that's as far as it'll let me zoom. This little facet, if you will, if we're talking jewelry terms, I guess, this piece of the cellophane that's pointed towards, on this camera, it's this direction. That little bit of light pinkish that's around that with the red in there, that really helps the wrapper effect work. I definitely need to get some colleagues to send me some tattoos. I would love to look at them with this close of an eye and try to figure out, you know, what their process was, and get them in the live chat, and they can tell me I'm absolutely incorrect the whole time. So yeah, that's my Skittles tattoo. I will show you this video one more time so you can see the movement of it all. Again, these are going to be optimal conditions. The right camera, the right lens, freshly done. And then here's our photograph from the day. Pretty rad. Oh no, Coobs, you didn't get a notification that I went live. Sorry, bud. You're catching me at the tail end of tearing this down, but you can jump in and tell me anything that you see in the next 3.5 minutes that looks stupid. Definitely part of doing these teardowns is getting people's reactions and opinions. This was my stencil, just for those in chat that just showed up. This is my stencil, this is my reference, and this is our final tattoo. And I was mentioning earlier, before you popped in, that there are definitely departures from this photograph to this tattoo, but this tattoo makes a lot more sense in skin, some of the decisions that are in there. This little corner though, I'm still loving that, and how that translated and turned into that. Pretty chill. Great tattoo, looks very photorealistic. Thank you. I love photorealism. It's something I've been working on in oil painting since I started, in drawing since I started. Always been obsessed with the more realistic the better. Part of a complex, no doubt. But this is where I ended up, so it works out. I am going to wrap up though. I wanted to mention really quick before I get out of here that I am trying to become the first tattooer to tattoo in outer space. And there's many steps that I'm going to have to take to get there, but with everybody's help, I'm sure I can get there. Coops, he says, makes sense, not always one-to-one, and good tattoo artists know how to make the image pop correctly in the skin. I agree, and I think that those decisions are what are the main separator between good and great tattooers, is how you interpret that reference and how you make it work in the skin. And I also think that's one of the main reasons why we are not going to get good tattoos out of any kind of robotics or AI. Because even if you could replicate one for one somehow on the skin cell level, absolute perfect photograph, I don't know how you program a machine to make the decisions that the artist would make of what's going to work, what's going to last, what's going to hold up. So yeah, I will see this tattoo soon. I have an appointment with this client. I'll try to grab a more recent photo, and then I'll throw it up maybe on a Discord, or maybe I'll just pop in and do a quick touch up on this video and add in here. Is there anything else I want to say about this? I got 29 seconds before I got a dip. No, I think that's it. Help me get to outer space. Tell your friends. Let's share this, and like, subscribe, all that. Set up your push notifications. Hopefully that helps you catch on when I go live. I'm going to try to start posting more and come up with more leeway and more head time so that you understand when I'm going to go live so that you don't miss it. But thanks for tuning in, and I will check you out next time.